how does that make us safer?
A, I don't think they want to replace them. I think they want to reduce the size of the government.
So how does that make us safer?
B, well, I mean, I don't know that it makes us.
These are not forced.
These are not forced.
What happens, Scott, when a Democrat takes over and goes into every agency and says, okay,
well,
all the Republicans out?
No Democrat.
There aren't very many in the first place.
Law enforcement and CIA.
CIA is not law enforcement. They do not patrol your city and pick up the drug dealers outside your kid's school. They do that.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this panel. It gets pretty heated. I think it's worth watching just because it shows you something about the characters of the Republican Party. Let's check this out.
Is Donald Trump about to put all of America's spies out of work? A CIA spokesperson and sources familiar telling CNN tonight that the agency's entire workforce received buyout offers today. How does this work?
This is exactly what Project 2025 said.
Oh no,
They
not
said-
the Project 2025 talking
As much as we talked about on all these shows for months that Donald Trump said he knew nothing about Project 2025 and he didn't adhere to it, and even though everyone that drew it up worked for him, this is exactly, I went back and looked at Project 2025 tonight. Eliminate up to 1 million federal jobs, cut federal workers' daily and benefits, make it easier to discriminate against people of color, women, dismantle and privatize federal agencies. They most certainly have done that.
They have not done that.
They've made it easier to
He has
discriminate.
not changed federal civil rights laws. He
Oh,
revoked an old executive order and then
He just
kept in place
violated
other
all of the rights
protections.
and laws that protect federal employees by putting everyone in the U.S. aid workforce on leave tonight, just before the show. We're calling thousands of people who are in hardship positions in foreign countries who have people's lives in their hands and telling them they have to uproot their families and come back to the United States and abandon those people, which means a lot of people are going to die, innocent people, needlessly, for the stupidity of a process that cuts first and asks questions later. And this is the kind of crude and ignorant and sort of cruel policy that we see across the federal government. I have friends in every department who don't know if they can pay their mortgages, don't know if their kids are going to be able to stay in school because they might have to move. And these are people who often are, in almost all cases, are patriotic Americans who signed up to serve their country.
But none of
we're
that's
betraying
going
them
to
and we're betraying the
happen.
people
None of that's going to happen because of the CIA buyout. They get offered 8 months if they want it. About 1% of federal employees have taken the other buyouts.
You think we don't need the
the
CIA?
Same.
But how does
that's not what anyone said. A buyout is an option that they can take if they want, and not 8 months paid leave.
And you might get fired.
How does defunding the CIA actually make us stronger?
Good question.
My question is, like, if you're going to go out and defund law enforcement, and you gave us hell, Democrats, with that awful talking point that they ran around the country with 4 years ago, but if you're going to defund law enforcement, right, how does this actually make us stronger around the world?
This doesn't reduce the CIA's budget. They're offering people to take it out.
We're not talking about that.
And I think they can afford a 1% shave of the headcount at the CIA.
We're
it's a massive bloated agency.
Just so people understand what you're talking about, 1% is what we are being told at the moment has been the take-up rate. For
How
this.
many CIA?
It's not to say that is what they want. They have said, Doge and those folks, they said they want it to be 10 to 15% of the
And
workforce.
we could absolutely do that.
So the question is, if you just go ahead and say 10 to 15% of the workforce at the FBI, at the CIA, go away, and you don't have a plan to, let's say you want to replace them with different kinds of people, but you don't have a plan to do that, how does that make us safer?
A, I don't think they.
Guys, I want to say one thing. The reason I wanted to make this video just exposes the character of the Republican Party. Whatever Trump says, whatever Elon says, they're just going to agree with. It doesn't matter what it is. This is the party of law and order. And I think one of the purposes of this channel, as I keep making videos, is to try to show mainly Republicans, MAGA voters, the character of the Republican Party and these MAGA pundits that you agree with. That the values and morals and principles that you might agree with, they don't. This is why I say, oh, is this Christian conservative values? Because I'm trying to show you that this is obviously not Christian values. And conservatives constantly use that as a weapon. The same thing with the family values. When it's the Democrats that are pushing for child tax credits, to tax people who are making over 400K, to push a bill that can, executive order that can get rid of price gouging, to save money for the everyday Americans. Guys, you really think this 15-20% they're trying to cut is to give it the money to you? Doge is run by the richest man in the world. He's gotten rich by doing the opposite, by taking as much money as possible.
want to replace them. I think they want to reduce the size of the government.
So how does that make us safer?
B, well, I mean, I don't know that it makes us unsafe to have a slightly smaller government. B, on this buyouts across the board, I think it's
I want to be clear, we're talking here about the CIA and the FBI. I'm not talking about the government.
Yeah, well, they are in the government. But
in broad terms, I'm talking about specific agencies that are tasked with national security
and
law enforcement responsibilities.
I think in those agencies and in every agency, for any Republican president, it is a fair assessment that most of the federal bureaucracy, a good chunk of it, is openly hostile to your worldview and your agenda.
That's number one. That is true.
That is absolutely true.
It's ridiculous.
Of course, let me finish.
But finish your point.
And so you could walk in and say, everybody who doesn't support me leave, or you could walk in and say, I'm going to give you the option. If you don't feel like you can support my agenda, here's a pretty generous way out for the moment because you don't have to work here.
Or you could say,
to me, I think he's treating people. Let me finish. I think he's treating people who simply, and it's their right to have a political opinion, he's treating people who may not support his agenda in a fair and humane way if they don't feel like they can execute on his agenda.
May I please point out Scott and Brad's hypocrisy, just for one moment? Because here they're utilizing the talking point saying that these agencies are bloated, that we can afford to trim it down, that we need to eliminate some of the fat, that we need to reallocate these dollars. Well, then let's go back to the point that I made earlier about defunding the police. When the individuals were in these communities saying that police budgets were too much, that we need to reallocate funds, that we need to trim, that we need to cut back, that we need to put these funds in schools and other community programs and not allocate it to these bloated police forces. These individuals who are sitting here, Brad and Scott, went out and said that that's anti-American, that's anti-police. This is something you should not do. But when we're talking about the FBI and CIA feeding into this conservative...
The CIA is not picking up drug dealers in
local law enforcement and spooks
totally different.
are very different things.
First of all, I'm not going to...
We're talking about the CIA first and foremost.
I'm going to talk about the CIA and I'm going to talk about the FBI, and I'm not going to diminish their role as law enforcement officers in keeping us safe. And all I'm saying is that out of one breath, if you're going to sit here and lambast people, because what I believe is that I thought the defund the police movement was not in line with where the American public is. I also think saying that we're going to cut 10 to 15% of our CIA and FBI agents is not where the American public is.
God forbid you go back to 2012 head counts or 2016 head counts. The federal government has only ever moved in one direction in recent decades, and it's up and up and up. More employees, more of our taxpayer money being spent.
To doing this.
Yeah, and I think she's gonna say it here, but it's not that. I'm sure you can find a lot of institutions that need cutting, but like Trump wants to get rid of Department of Education. It's how they're doing it. They're not looking into seeing where there's fat and where we can cut off some here and there. They're just someone said they're just bashing through, like just idiots. What does this sound like, guys out there? Independents, Republicans, if you ran a company or you ran the government, is this how you would do it? Just to buy out any department 15-20% without understanding, wait a second, maybe we have a little bit too many people in this department, well, maybe we need more here. Does this sound like this good management, good leader? Like this is just insane to me.
In a way that actually identifies the things that you want to cut.
That is valid. This is chaos. I agree.
Here we go.
I don't think anybody
can agree on that. It's not an orderly way to do this. The beast needs to be
Wait a second. One at a time, please. Let me just finish my thought here, okay? Whatever happened to saying, maybe this is what you're saying, there are certain functions maybe we should be doing less of. Certain departments maybe we should have a lot less of. Why not do that instead of just saying, let's just take a
because they've made it so hard.
To the whole thing.
They've made it so hard with such intense protections for civil servants.
Here's what I think. Trump's been able to do whatever he wanted.
Let me let you in. Here's what I think. I think it's just laziness. I think it's harder to do it the other way. And this way gets better headlines, but it's lazy, and it does not require any thought. It does not require governance. It does not require any leadership. And hey, it's easy, and you get the headlines you're looking for.
And it's harder to combat because it's so crazy and so fast and so illegal. But there's one point that Scott made that I really have to take issue with, that we're treating these federal workers humanely. Because, you know, if you talk to any of them, and I've talked to hundreds of them over the last few weeks, hundreds, and I know hundreds of them, and I've known thousands of them over the course of my time living in D.C., and what you fail to understand is that everyone who has a job in the federal government has an opinion. Everyone has a view. What we grant them is the respect of knowing that they can do their jobs and put their political opinions aside. Does it happen in every single case?
Some
No.
of them don't.
But the vast majority pride themselves in serving America. And when you go in and you say you're either with Trump or get out, you're the one politicizing the federal government, not the people inside the federal government.
These are not forced.
And what happens, Scott, when a Democrat takes over and goes into every agency and says, okay, all the Republicans out.
No Democrats.
Scott, your last word.
A, no Democrat's going to shrink the government. B, they're not forcing anyone out. These are voluntary buyouts.
No.
They're voluntary, and the CIA is voluntary.
Every USAID employee in the
yes,
country
they are reorienting
administrative
the soft power bureaucracy. But that's different than the buyout program. They're not making anyone take a buyout. They're saying if you want to leave, go ahead.
Or you might get fired.
And some will do it.
They're not saying Plan B.
Or you might get
Plan B is that they're probably going to be let go after.
Probably.
They're terrorizing Americans.
It's not terrorizing.
Oh my
get
gosh! You want the tiny violin out for the people being offered
well, you may
8
not
months
care
of paid
about
vacation.
you may not care about
Tell that to
CIA
Americans who
agents
can't
and
afford groceries. 8 months of paid vacation.
What does that have to have? That has nothing to do with it.
For me,
because these people buy groceries too, because they are Americans who buy
and
groceries.
they're very
and they're
well
losing
paid.
their job.
And they work for taxpayers.
I want to circle back really quickly.
Your disrespect of the federal workforce is pretty shameful.
I'm gonna get out of that portion because I agree with Josh, but at the end of the day, no one around this table can answer that one simple question that we started with. Like, how does this policy initiative make us safer? How does
it make us unsafe? You can't answer that.
Firing law enforcement and CIA.
CIA is not law enforcement. They do not patrol your city and pick up the drug dealers outside your kid's school. They do not.
In answer to your comments, Scott, we got to go. But in answer to your comments, Scott, one of the things that the CIA spokesperson said was that they actually want to reorient the CIA toward things that the CIA already does, which is look into places like Mexico and try to find intelligence about cartels and about drug dealers and all of those things. They already do that. And so when it comes to law enforcement...
Sounds like we need to work a little harder.
No, Scott. When it comes to... You just adamantly said they're not involved in law enforcement.
Not domestically.
But they are involved in the national security of the country. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and I don't know that reducing a slight amount of headcount makes us less safe. And if the people who are working there don't feel like they can execute on the agenda of this administration, I question whether they would be working hard on it anyway.
An ideological litmus test for everyone in the United States government. Stand by for us coming up next.
All right, so let me give you my spiel here. He doesn't know. He doesn't know if you can cut these many people. What if they're understaffed? Like, to just make this statement just all about agreeing with Donald Trump. It's all about agreeing with whatever Elon Musk. It's about their own personal self-preservation. And let me give you my spiel here. MAGA, conservatives, Republicans, Trump voters. This, whatever money that they're trying to save, you cannot believe that they're going to pass this on to you. This, if you move back, this is all for tax cuts. This is also that Trump can push his tax cuts. And so that him and his rich friends can get even more richer. And then and in the meanwhile, they are playing you guys. They're manipulating you. They make you believe that anything that the Democrats want, you should hate. They've trained you. They've manipulated you to feel this anger towards whatever the other party wants, even if it's in your best interest. And they use your anger and your hate. They've identified this. They use your anger and your hate against you. And they dangle red meat because they think, and I say it all the time, they dangle stuff like black and brown people in front of you. Oh, look, we got rid of DI. Oh, look, we blamed another immigrant for something. These people do not have your best interest. The reason your life, whether it's in despair or isn't where you want it to be, it's not because of the communities and groups of people that have been most disenfranchised. Look up and you'll start to see your problems. Look at the super rich. Why don't they ever talk about taxing the rich and lowering your taxes? Why don't they ever talk, Elon Musk or Donald Trump, ever talk about closing tax loopholes? Elon Musk called American workers idiots and morons. And that's why he wants to use Indian workers, because he thinks Americans are too stupid. But the truth is, not only is he insulting us, insulting you, he's exploiting the Indian workers. He's just trying to pay less. It's not that you're not smart enough. You are plenty smart enough. He just doesn't want to pay you the extra 20, 30, 40K a year. And then this attack on Department of Education, the attack on education in general. You have to understand why they're doing this. They attack science. They attack doctors. And any embodiment of education. And the reason for that is because they don't want you to be educated. Why they all have Ivy Leagues and master's degrees and all this crap to get where they are. They're super. Not that they did that to get to where they are. A lot of them, like Trump and Elon Musk, were fed millions of dollars. But while they get all their degrees, they want you not to. You don't find that suspicious. You don't see how, if you're not educated enough, how you're more easily manipulated. You have to be able to see that. The more educated you are, the more you're going to have critical thinking skills and be able to see 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, be able to see different angles. This anger and this hate you have, they're just going to keep using it. 10 years ago when Trump came down, you were pissed. You're still pissed to this day. You guys won and you're still pissed and angry. It's not going to go away. You can redirect that anger though. And you could be part of the change for good that will help all of us. Just imagine you could get lower taxes. Just imagine if you could cut your tax rate by half. If we tax those mother effers. Do you understand that the richest 400 families, guys, richest 400 families paid an effective tax rate of 8%. That's a fraction of what we pay, guys. I'm talking to you conservatives out there. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. And, oh, one more thing. I've read in the comments that people say Scott Jennings should be fired. While I agree with it, you know, in a vacuum, I prefer him on the show. Because he's just an embodiment. He's just an embodiment of not only MAGA, but of the cultist behavior. It's easy to point out that the disingenuousness, the character, the lack of morale, principle, the just nonsense. And show the world. It's better that these people are not hidden. I'd rather you show the world. I'd rather him not hide how he truly feels about things. And I try to be very direct, very simple, and yes, visceral at times. We'll try how I get that message out there about these people. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're not. And I'll catch you in the next one.